All right, so I guess we'll get this meeting started. First of all, I just want to take the opportunity to say thank you to all the candidates that are here this evening. I can't say enough for, especially in the time that we're in right now. They call it the Great Resignation or the quiet quitting, whatever the challenges are. We're very grateful for you guys to take up the opportunity to do community service for the city of Waterloo. And on behalf of the Vista Hills Community Association, we have some board members that are here tonight. Thank you for coming tonight, and I appreciate it. So it's awesome for you guys. Thank you. That's almost the extent of anything that I have to say for this evening, but I do have one final note amongst this pile of paper here. I would like to also thank the, oh, there it is. The Waterloo Regional District School Board, and of course the Vista Hills Public School, and I believe we have Penny here this evening, who's the principal of the school. So thank you for coming, Penny, and for all your support that you provided us for tonight. Just one clerical thing I just wanted to add before I hand it off to Jake this evening. We'll be doing all the Q&A for you guys, and Bradley in the front rows, our buzzer boy. He's going to be timing everything, so that you got notice of him waving his arms or whatever, you'll know what that's for. Yeah, so all I got here is a real quick disclaimer that I would like to read from the Waterloo Regional District School Board, and then I'll pass it off to you, Jake. Okay. The views and opinions expressed in this meeting are those of the speakers, commentators, attendees, and/or hosts. They do not explicitly or necessarily reflect nor represent the Waterloo Regional District School Board, its staff, or students in any way. The Waterloo Regional District School Board cannot be held accountable for all or any views expressed during this event. And that's it. That's the disclaimer. Okay. All right. So I'll hand it off to you, Jake, and thanks for being the MC for tonight.
No problem. Thanks. I'll do my best. So just first, I'll go over the agenda quickly. So we're going to spend 3 minutes each with each of the candidates so they can have an introduction and tell them why they think they should be elected here for council or for the mayor. Then we're going to go over some pre-submitted questions. So we did a review of all the Vista Hills social media websites, as well as got questions from attendees prior to this meeting, and then combined them into basically 8 main topics of concern. After that, we're going to do a Q&A with people in attendance, or maybe virtually if they can write in some questions as well for our candidates, and then they'll have a closing statement after that. So with that, I guess we'll start here with candidate for Mayor Rob Evans. Go ahead.
Gee, thank you. It's great to be here. Vista Hills, thanks for having us. This year, this election is more important than ever. Sometimes people say that every year. There's a particular reason why it's important this year. We had 30% turnout in the last election. Folks who care about Waterloo, folks who care about Vista Hills, I know we can do better. I used to live in Laurelwood, just down the street when that was the edge of town. And if you've looked around, you can tell there's been a lot of change. And if you've been at home like I have, I've been fortunate to have a job. Spent a lot of time on a laptop, doing Zoom meetings. This is such a gift to be here, to be amongst friends and community members, just talking about what's important to us. I was born in Waterloo. I've seen a lot of change here. I went to Laurier. I'm the only candidate here with 5 years of CEO level experience. I've traveled the world, been talking about the Waterloo story. What's really cool is the world tells us about the Waterloo brand and what's important to them. It's their Canadian values. The growth that we've experienced here and in Vista Hills is new. It's different. It's unlike we've seen anywhere else in Canada. By some measures, we've grown 16% about the last 5 years. That's a lot of change. There's already some stability here. I'm really proud to be able to bring some innovation to help bridge that gap that exists between when a community is very stable for a long time and experiences that hockey stick growth. So innovation is what we need while we maintain the stability that we've got. I'm proud to represent my city and work with council to bring the change that we need. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Dorothy McKay.
Thanks, Jake, and thanks, Sean. There you are. And hi, everyone. I just wanted to start with a quick land acknowledgement, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So let me begin by acknowledging the enduring presence and deep traditional knowledge and philosophies of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today. Waterloo is situated on the land traditionally cared for by the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and the Neutral people. So yeah, thanks for hosting this today, and thanks for coming out and being interested enough to engage in this municipal election, and certainly thanks to the other candidates and down there as well. I haven't met you yet, but thanks for engaging in the political discussion. So my name's Dorothy McCabe. I'm running for mayor of the city of Waterloo. I am a government relations professional who has worked in the municipal sector for close to 8 years, working with councils, working with senior corporate staff. And as well, I currently work at the town of Milton, although I'm on a leave of absence. Prior to that, I worked for former Mayor Carl Zaire as his chief of staff. And prior to that, I worked for John Malloy, who was the provincial member of parliament and a cabinet minister in the previous government. So I'm the only one running for this position who actually is working and who has worked in both the provincial system and the municipal system. So I say that to just emphasize the great deal of experience that I do have. And certainly in my opinion, and what I'm hearing from, lots of people across Waterloo, is that being a mayor is not an entry-level job. Being a mayor is something that really requires experience. And as I said, I've had close to 20 years working either in the provincial sector, the municipal sector. I worked as well in one of our great nonprofits in this community, Kids Ability, on their leadership team. And certainly I've been an active board member and community leader in a variety of boards and, in my own neighborhood association, like some of you as well. So I certainly have the confidence to say that I have the experience that's needed to lead this city and to really start at day one. So when I've been, I've given this, the consideration, the decision to run for mayor, a great deal of thought. It's not something that I've taken lightly. And certainly when I've talked to people over the last few years in Waterloo, they've told me that they see a city that's ready to change. They see a city that's ready to really take some strategic look that needs a strategic vision so that we can really look towards the future and ask what's next for our city. So again, with the years of experience that I have currently working in municipal government, like I said before, have the experience to start on day one and provide the leadership and the strategic vision the city needs.
And our last candidate here for mayor is Shannon Weaver.
Thank you. Thank you to the Vista Hills Neighborhood Association. Thanks to all the neighbors here in person, which is lovely, but also those that are viewing online. And thanks to my fellow candidates who are putting their names and ideas forward, as well as our ward candidates. It's so nice to share the space with our ward candidates tonight as well. My name is Shannon Weaver. I came to this city in 1996 to study economics at the University of Waterloo. And then I was fortunate to complete my MBA at Laurier. Throughout my time in university and beyond, I was a volunteer in the community, and I have continued that as a community leader, a collaborative volunteer, and mentor to our next generation of community leaders. I have led organizations with large teams, managed major budgets and capital projects. I've chaired boards and committees and served as a governance and leadership advisor to many boards in this community. Through my leadership and significant involvement in the city and the region, I have the experience needed to be your next mayor. Since registering to run for mayor on May 2nd, I've been meeting with residents across Waterloo. And building on all of those consultations and my 20+ years of community leadership experience, the priorities that I've set to move Waterloo forward, creating a more livable community for all, are really reflective of the community needs that I've been hearing and I've been a part of in the collaborative leadership that I've been a part of in Waterloo and the region for 20+ years. Vibrant neighborhoods are truly at the heart of our community. As a past board member of my own neighborhood association, and as a member of the steering committee for the very first neighborhood strategy in the city of Waterloo, I appreciate and honor the incredible effort that it takes to make these neighborhoods across Waterloo more livable for all. In fact, I think we were having conversations before, just comparing notes on our own, maintenance. And Royce and I have talked about this too, the fun of neighborhood ice rinks. We talked about the hundreds of hours that go into that, the hundreds of hours that go into planning neighborhood events. And I want to share my gratitude for everybody here that has chipped in to make Vista Hills and the neighborhoods across our city more livable for everyone. As mayor, I will work to activate new tools, to build more housing, serving a diverse spectrum of needs. And I will also advocate for safer, healthier, more connected and vibrant neighborhoods where everyone belongs and thrives. My name is Shannon Weber, and I offer my service, my experience, and my collaborative leadership style to serve as your next mayor of Waterloo.
Thank you, Shannon. And I should just mention here, there is a fourth candidate for mayor here in the city of Waterloo, and that's Kip Saunders, but he was not able to attend tonight. So we'll move on to the councillors for Ward 2, get the candidates. So our current councillor, Royce Bodley. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jake. My name is Royce Bodley, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm the current Ward 2 city councillor for the city of Waterloo, which includes Vista Hills, and I'm running for re-election. I'll have to connect and share notes with Shannon later after graduating from Laurier with a degree in economics and accounting. My wife and I chose to stay here to raise our family, and we have lived in the Columbia Forest part of Ward 2 for 15 years. Vista Hills is an incredible community. It is a unique community that there's very few neighborhoods where you would see protected forest on three of the four sides of the neighborhood. And it's such a great privilege for the folks who live adjacent to the forest to be able to access all of the recreation that exists right in our backyards. And we also have a beautiful and quiet sort of little enclave within the city of Waterloo here in Vista Hills. We have an incredible school with leaders at the school and incredible neighborhood association that is so passionate and so engaged in everything that happens in our community. And I'm so grateful for everybody at the neighborhood association and the folks on the community gardens teams and the folks on the community rinks teams who make Vista Hills what it is. I love working with community members to make the city a better place to live, tackling problems large and small. And I've worked extremely hard over the past 4 years to engage with residents in person, at events, on social media, through town halls, and through my website where I've provided monthly newsletters to all of my constituents. I'm proud of some of the accomplishments that we've had on council over the last 4 years in some incredibly challenging times, and I'm eager to continue in that role. I'm excited to continue tackling the challenges we face as a city, including climate change, affordable housing, and safe streets. I'm passionate about building an equitable and inclusive city where all are welcomed and belong. And I'm eager to bring my passion, my commitment, and my experience back to council. On October 24th, I would encourage you to please vote for Royce Bodley. Thank you.
Thank you, Royce. And our other candidate is Khalid Burbash.
Okay, thank you, Jackie, and thank you everybody here for making time to come and meet us. I really appreciate that, and thank you very much for the school, Vista Hills School, and the principal too. So my name is Khalid Burbash. I graduated from School of Architecture and Urban Planning 30 years back, and since then I worked in practice architecture and urban planning. I moved to Waterloo from Ottawa back in 2006, where I started my PhD program as infrastructure management degree. And I was proud to finish that in 3.5 years, which originally was planned for 5-year program. And then like every new graduate started to look for some jobs here and there, and everybody says, you are overqualified, sorry, you can't do your job. So then I said, let's go back to school. Then there was opportunity to join Master of Public Service at University of Waterloo, which was the unique one. It was we were the first group to 30 students, which is chosen among hundreds of candidates from across Canada. And I was lucky to be one of those 30 students for the first group. I did finish it in a year and a half, and then started looking for a job again. So unfortunately, it was good opportunity for me. Then I decided to start my own business, which I call it how I'm going to connect the public service, which is like something related to political science, and with the architecture. And I did another master degree with engineering management too. So I named my business as Can Connect, so I can connect all these 4 different skills. So basically 4 university degrees. And then I start work on development projects. So I start with giving some consultations to new developers, investors, etc. And then I realized that I need to create, like, incorporate this business. Then I did that to 2018. And then I reincorporated in 2020. So for me, I think I have the most needed skills and capacities to serve the city of Waterloo as an architect, as urban planner, as infrastructure management side. This also is come with about 30 years of experience here in Canada, back in Libya, my home country. I had the opportunity to work with different international organizations and companies like Lufthansa, Aerospace. And if you visit my website, you find like my resume, like you can see it. And here I am. I hope you vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to just point out too, there was a 3rd candidate for councillor here in Ward 2, Shaheen Mujahid. However, they've withdrawn due to health concerns and advice from their doctor. So based on City of Waterloo, I guess, rules, they will still be on the ballot though. So, but they are not seeking a nomination as councillor anymore. So
Yeah.
Vista Hills, and I'm sure everybody here wishes him the best with his help.
All
All right, as I mentioned, we'll move forward with our pre-submitted questions. So we tried our best to hit 8 topics of what seemed to be the majority concern for the residents of Vista Hills. Brad here is going to put up his hand for a 2-minute time frame, so we'll try and keep going. If you see his hand up, just try and wrap up your sentence or wrap up your point rather quickly so we can stay on time. And with that, we'll go into everyone's favorite topic. The first one is bike lanes. So bike lanes are a major topic, specifically in Vista Hills, as there's concerns regarding their implementation, the supporting city infrastructure, and disruption it's caused our neighborhood. Please explain your position on residential bike lanes and potentially bike lanes at citywide level. Recognizing this is a polarizing issue, some of the concerns are they're not well used. There's limited opportunities in Vista Hills to bike to work. There's limited parking on main streets, which has resulted in side streets and construction areas, etc., being used as parking lots. In some cases, people have seen cars parking on lawns or 3 wide. And also there's limited options for overnight guest parking because there is a few city lots here, but you're not allowed to park overnight in them. So if you want an overnight guest, they have to park on a side street with a permit through the exemption process. So with that, we'll start actually this time with Dorothy, and we'll switch up the starting order each time.
Thanks so much, Jake. That's an awesome
I'm-
question to start with.
No problem.
Yeah, so on the broader question of bike lanes, you know, when you think across the entire city, and I know we're talking about Vista Hills here tonight, but on the, you know, running to be mayor, I'm, you know, thinking of course of neighborhoods like this, but also of the broader city. I'll be completely honest with you. I am a fan of bike lanes. I use them. I'm an active cyclist in and around my neighborhood. I totally get it that it's, you know, I live in Glasgow Heights too, so it's a different makeup and a different type of neighborhood, and I don't have to, except for Glasgow Hill, I don't have that quite a steep climb to get back home. So I understand that it's the neighborhood is different, and the neighborhood is newer here. But part of the issue, I'm on Climate Action Waterloo Region's Transportation Committee. I've been on that for a number of years, and we certainly have heard on a number of, you know, frequently from people, nobody uses the bike lanes. And the reality is that no one uses bike lanes that aren't safe. So I'm not saying that no one uses bike lanes in your community, but generally speaking, paint is not infrastructure, right? Painted lines do not keep kids safe. They don't keep cyclists safe. they don't keep, they keep no one safe, right? They don't keep a pedestrian safe. So the idea, I do support the idea of designating where bike lanes should go, or potentially multi-use paths, although I think as multi-use paths, they do have limited use, because in terms of using it as a bike lane, because pedestrians and bikes and scooters that move fast don't really mix well with people who are walking at a different speed. So, so I think it's wise for the city and the council to have decided to designate where those lanes are going to go, because we are going to need to build that infrastructure at some point. So if you're looking to me to ask if that's something that we would take out, I'm going to have to say my view on this is that and I will wrap up, is that cities that are not building bike lanes are not taking climate change seriously. So I think they need to go in. I think they need to become protected bike lanes, and they will be used.
Thanks. Shane?
Thanks. Cycling infrastructure, I do believe, is part of a connected and complete community. And I think it's really, when I hear about the question, and in Vista Hills as well, when I've been engaging with residents and knocking on doors, I mean, some folks are just feeling that, you know, it's not a practical use as a painted lane, but they appreciate the efforts. Some do appreciate the efforts of trying to have more active transportation. Many are quite fond of the trail network that are here. And I do hear that across the city, and I'm happy that we have moved forward with some more multi-use trails. And as I've asked people, as they're using it for cycling and walking, that seems to be across a diverse demographic, more preferred use. So I think in the case, one of the things I've observed and I've heard at the doors is the issue of parking and the interconnectivity there. And one of the challenges I hear, and I think it relates also to some of the challenges we're experiencing around housing affordability, is that we have multi-generations, we have families living in homes. We don't, of course, want to encourage people to be commuting from far away, but how do we make the communities that we are in now more livable for everyone? And one of the challenges we have is that with many generations, many members in homes, we are challenged to have parking. I spoke to someone he and his sister moved into the home with their aging parent. He has no choice but to drive. He works in Brantford as a mail carrier. I think we have to continue to think through some of these issues. I'm not suggesting that cycling infrastructure is wrong or bad, but I would love to be able to have the opportunity to work with the ward councillor and the community to see, are there some adjustments to some of the built form to continue to encourage active transportation, encourage safe active transportation, and also recognize some of the realities as our neighborhoods evolve, and some of those realities are driven by our affordable housing crisis.
So in the city of Waterloo, we have a thriving cycling community, and I think of my child who attends Vista Hills here and is in grade 8 and who cycles with their friends in the neighborhood all the time. And when I think of that, I think that their safety has to be the most important thing. And while painted bike lanes are not ideal, as Dorothy alluded to, it is certainly safer than asking our children and other cyclists to weave in and out of parked cars along the minor collector routes through our neighborhood. When this issue sort of became a burgeoning issue in the community, I committed to knocking on every door, and I did so, of every street that was going to get cycling lanes in the coming years. And of course, there are differing opinions on this topic, and I appreciate and value those opinions of all the residents in the neighborhood. I will share that from a planning perspective, the city of Waterloo mandated that the vast majority of the homes that were going to have cycling lanes put on their street, in front of their street, would have at least 4 parking spots in their house. And that has come to pass. The city also built 2 parking lots for spillover parking on Sundew Drive. And through listening to residents when I was out door knocking, I took that information and advocated back to the city, excuse me, to ensure that those parking lots were cleared in the winter time for additional spillover parking in those times. There are also side benefits of these cycling lanes, which ensure that there is parking off the minor collectors, making it easier for snow clearing to access the minor collector routes, and ultimately making it easier for transit when it ultimately comes through the subdivision. 50% of our community greenhouse gas emissions come from single occupancy vehicles, and it is crucial that we design and build our neighborhoods in such a way that we plan for more ways out of the neighborhood than just by car. And I am supportive of the cycling lanes as they exist, always looking for ways to improve, but happy to continue sharing my support.
Thank you, Royce. Brilliant.
Yeah, thank you. So in terms of bike or cycling infrastructure, I think it's I totally support that in principle. But however, I think it's something we need also to look at it from at the beginning when it's the neighborhoods being developed. So I think we need to have some more discussion with developers specifically, where we can introduce those bike lanes or bike infrastructure at early stage. So it's going to be taken into consideration even when it is built. Then we know where we got the parking, and then it becomes part of the cost that would be included during the development. Although the buyers or the end user will pay the price, but I think it's better to do it earlier than later, because even the cost will be almost higher than that, and at the end of the day, the taxpayer will be the price. So one of the benefits I think of the cycling is making people more active, and more active then is more healthy. And I think this will follow along with making more parking spaces for more people to come and enjoy the cycling around the city. But also at the same time, it's another threat for the environment, the gas emissions. So we have to use more gases. So we have to come with some balanced approach where we be more practical and more cost effective in that. Although it's important for everybody, but we know that around the year, we only have maybe maximum 6 months to use those bike infrastructure. So I think we continue supporting this idea and try to do our best to make this balance happen.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Gabe. This is a great opportunity for growing communities to understand who's using bike lanes. There's so many trails and bike lanes, and so many other aspects of where people can enjoy this city in an active way. We've got challenges too, because sometimes planners forget that cars still use the roads. We've seen examples of that. There are things that planners can do. We've got to be smarter in the way that we do things, but more importantly, what that means is we need to listen to our communities. I've been chair for many years, or co-chair of our neighborhood association. My friend on the west side was hit by a car biking across the expressway. And you folks have additional infrastructure challenges too, just in terms of trying to commute anywhere. And the bike lane specifically is a safety issue. For my son, he's on the road, we go biking anywhere. Trails are a good option. There are additional things that we need to do as a city to start listening to our neighborhood associations like Vista Hills here. One example, there's 1,300 city staff. They know what they're doing, a lot of them. They care the same way that we do. We have children who are active, who use these trails, who use the roads too, same thing as where the cars are going. But there's different aspects of the way going forward. Our children are going to be getting around our city, and to and from places to be recreationally active, place to commute to and from work. These are the things we need to take a holistic view and start listening to our neighborhood associations. So if there's a bike lane issue, let's talk about it. Let's bring neighborhood associations together. We listen to our councillors who know the community as well. We can't pretend to be bike lane experts as mayor of any city. What we can do is do a better job listening to our communities, neighborhoods like Vista Hills.
Just to clarify too, I don't know if I said it, but all these questions were submitted to the councillors and mayor candidates last Wednesday, so they've all had a chance to have a week to prepare their answers or whatnot. So they're not surprised by these ones; they'll be surprised by the ones later. Well, maybe not as controversial, maybe it is, bike lanes. The next question is regarding taxes and finances. And as a new community, Vista Hills has seen tax bills increase disproportionately due to building permits, valuation increases with those building permits or impact assessments, and continued tax increases by the city. So please explain your position on taxes and the overall financial spending direction of the city of Waterloo. Shannon, will have you start.
Sure. And it's absolutely one that comes up, came up last night, and we have a conversation, a debate with the Rotary and at the doors. I think part of it is, we need more communication about how taxes are set. I think one of the good things that City of Waterloo has done that is, I think, has shown some great leadership among municipalities is to have a 3-year budget. So there's predictability. And I noticed some nodding from the expert beside me that knows how this works too. So part of it is education, I think, and understanding how taxes are set. But what I can say to you is, and I think we all understand that these are driven by budgets, right? It's driven by what we decide are the priorities. It's driven by what we need to maintain, whether it's snow clearing, and it's also the taxes that you are assessed. A large portion goes to other groups. So the region takes 60% of your tax bill. There's a portion to education. So that's another piece of education, and the city's been trying to help residents understand that more. Sometimes we see the bill and think, my goodness, the city is spending all of this money. But in fact, it's a much smaller portion at the city level. But for the budget, it's really about having a council, a mayor that can help to lead with staff, ensuring that we are matching the priorities, the demands of the city, excellent service so that we can have this community that is livable for all, with really effective and efficient use of those resources, because that's what's driving the tax rate, because we set an aggregate amount, a budget, and then from there we determine which each property is assessed. So for me, my commitment to you as someone who has been a treasurer, a board chair, an executive director with an MBA and an economics background, that I will be taking that very seriously and respecting as a steward of the finances of the community, respecting that decision process.
Thank you, Jake. So yeah, I wanted to set maybe a little bit of facts around taxes in the city of Waterloo. So if you look at the 26 largest municipalities in Ontario, we have the 11th lowest mill rate in Ontario, and we have the 12th lowest tax bill for the average property, average home price in your city. And so in other words, we're painfully average when it comes to the amount of taxes that we pay in the city of Waterloo. And Shannon alluded to the fact that there are different jurisdictions that get pieces of that tax bill. And ultimately, at the end of the day, when I'm looking at this through the city lens, about 1/3 of that tax bill is going towards the city. And I think that there are going to be immense challenges, to be quite frank, in the coming years. We're dealing, the city is not immune to the inflationary crisis and the cost of living crisis that we are faced as a community. The vast majority of our operating budget is related to collectively bargained salaries that are going to be increased to inflation. And the vast majority of our capital budget is pegged to the construction price index, which in some cases is higher than inflation. And it is going to require the city to very hard look at not only our operating budget and our capital, but also our capital budget as well too. And at the same time, the city of Waterloo has, like all municipalities in Canada, faces a significant infrastructure deficit too. At latest count, we have a $20 million gap to keep our assets at the same level of service that they are at today into the future. And I'm proud that this council has worked to try and narrow that gap, but we have much more to do there. And in addition to all of that, I also know that residents come to council asking for more and more value. They want more splash pads. They want more dog parks. They want better levels of service. And so these are great challenges that we face as a community, but I think that modest increases are likely to occur in the coming years. And I think it's important that we do that when it comes specifically to the infrastructure deficit, to close the gap so future residents are not burdened by significant future financial obligations and or crumbling infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Royce and Shannon, for giving more facts and background, which makes it easier for me. Yeah. So, but I mean, the most important piece here, information is, I think taxes is maybe one of the fundamental sources of revenue for cities and even with any government, even at Canada level. So there's no other revenues that the city can have other than some other fees and some other charges for development charges, etc. But at the same time, like even some development charges that goes to the region also, and people are willing to have less taxes. But unfortunately, this will go with the impact assessment that we're gonna determine the value of your property and how much then based on that some other calculations will determine how much you're going to pay for your property yearly tax. But I mean, I think at state there is a cap of, I mean, 3% increase. I mean, in yearly annual increase in taxes, property taxes maybe. So I think we need to come with some new approaches how we can make more things more affordable to people at the same time not thinking higher taxes. But I think we need to keep the budget. We need to keep the promise that the city will give more value to these services because people always need more better living standards and better service. And we are a growing community still. So the city will have more I mean, budget increase in the coming years. So we need to maybe come collectively have further discussion how we can accept those taxes, even if there's some increase, that we know this is required and is for the benefit of the city as a whole.
Thank you, Jim. So one thing I know in this room, everybody feels like we're paying a fair bit of taxes. We pay enough already. If you look around and it's okay.
Take your time, Jay.
When you look around, is everyone okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. So back to what's not okay, is paying more than our fair share of taxes. So when I'm here at Waterloo, what we're doing is the first 100 days in office, first thing we do is an assessment. We do an asset review of everything in the city. What's already known is that there's a lot of things that aren't being used to their optimal capacity. We're blessed. There's so many things in our city, trails, facilities. This library is maybe one example of this. The rec center down the way, the Harper Library. There's ways to optimize the use of all of the amazing space we already have, even by working together. There's examples of innovation. We've proven this in other communities and in our own. So 100 days in office, one of the first things we do is we take an assessment of all the assets we already have. Because there's communities like yours that may need some more. But also work together with other communities, soccer fields, baseball diamonds. We used to have 5 cricket fields in Waterloo region. Now there's 1. There's good examples of things like infrastructure that costs money. So here are some other facts. We've got an $87 million operating budget in the city of Waterloo. There's a $182 million capital budget. There's no shortage of money here. Our city's growing. We have a blessing here. A lot of communities that aren't quite as fortunate as Waterloo. They don't have growth. A growing tax base spreads the burden of the amazing infrastructure we already have and the new things we're going to need across more people. And by using the resources we have in a smarter way, that's just one of the examples of the management issue that we're talking about when we look at taxes. Every dollar that we have can be better accounted for. That's one of the things that I'm going to do as well.
Yeah, so taxes, death and taxes, right? Here, 2 things that we know are certain, but there's an old saying that the federal government has all the money, the municipal or the province has all the legislation and regulation, and municipalities have all the problems. So part of our issue around the tax rate that we do pay here is that to a large degree, there are services, programs and services that from years ago, there's some legacy issues of downloading from the provincial government. Some of those services were uploaded, but things like some services were not. So there's still some work to do on that that will help support, that needs to be done. to help support our municipalities to manage our budgets. But when I worked at the city of Kitchener as the chief of staff to mayors there, I also took my master's part-time in public administration, and the thesis that I did, and if anyone wants to look it up, will help you put you to sleep at night, but it was about the consultation process around the city of Kitchener's budgetary exercise. And one of the things that through my research of the city of Kitchener and as well looking at other municipalities showed that there really is a challenge with the way that cities communicate about the budget and the budgetary process and where the money is going. So I was able to share some of that information with our senior leaders and the mayor at the city of Kitchener. And we did do some revamping at Kitchener with how we present that information, because some of it is a consultation process that the municipalities need to improve upon. Some of it is a communication process to really explain better where the money goes, what it's for, and where it's being spent. But the other side of it is as Royce said, we do need to continue to invest. We need to be a city that continues to invest in itself. We do know that we need to continue to invest in our infrastructure. And climate change is real. It's coming every day. There's issues, and we need to. It would be penny wise and pound foolish to drive down budget costs now, when the fiscal reality is that interest rates are low. We can build that infrastructure that we know we're going to need now, rather than wait and create an even bigger deficit.
Moving on to question 3, it was recently the city of Waterloo announced funding for the purchase of land in the west end of Waterloo specifically for recreational usage. Where do you feel the west end is most lacking, and where/what should be built? And Royce, it's your turn to start.
Thanks, Jake. So yeah, it's exciting times to see the city investing in the west side, whether it's on recreation facilities or anything, frankly. In the next 4 years of council, there will be a complete recreation master plan that is intended to be completed, that will provide analysis of the citywide needs for recreation, for formal recreation across the entire city. And that will include an analysis of what the acute needs are in the west end of the city as well too. During that time, there will be a robust public engagement, as there was during our parkland strategy in the previous term of council and the transportation master plan, et cetera. And I'm committed to sharing that information with neighbors through all of the channels that I referenced earlier. What that needs assessment is going to identify is what we really need to be looking towards in terms of what we need on the west side of the city. It could be more cricket pitches, as Rob notes, could be soccer fields, it could be baseball diamonds, perhaps a small field house in this end of the city. We've had significant challenges over the many years looking to identify large parcels of land for a significant recreation facility out here, but I'm optimistic and proud of some of the work that we've done to acquire some pieces of land for this type of infrastructure in the future. And I know that setting aside some of that more formal recreation needs that the city has and the west side has, there are also more informal recreation opportunities that are needed in the west end. And that's why I'm excited to see things like the new dog park that's going to be built in the west end, in the west side employment lands coming hopefully very soon. The new splash pad that's going to be built next to Laurel Heights Secondary School, which is going to be a huge jewel for this end of the city. And the new skate park that's being built at the Harper Library. These are more informal recreation opportunities for the west end that are needed just as much as that formal recreation facility that we're looking to build as well.
Okay, thanks, Jake. So I think depending on how big the land that the city can acquire, and then based on the engagement of the public and to survey or learn about their needs and preferences, etc. And based also how much budget we can pay for this recreational facility, that will determine the type. I think we need to put some prioritizing exercise, and then we come up with most beneficial to the public in general, that we make sure that people can use it the most. So that means, in other words, we can optimize the use of this facility, or more than facility, hopefully, to serve the vast majority of the residents. So everybody can use it. Then through that, we can also help the engagement of residents together, and then maybe develop better space to live. And also, it's going to be also another opportunity to engage the kids together. after school time. This is where we can maybe have some more social events running on those facilities. So we work on more collaborative maybe programs between different different areas of our work. And then I think that would be the most important thing. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's talk about the reason why we feel like we need more space. It's for active families, it's for our kids. One of the things I know so many smart people at the city already. We've been in discussions for the last decade as I've volunteered at various different sports stuff throughout our town. If we wait another 4 years to the end of a 4-year assessment review of what assets are currently being used, there's going to be about 23,000 new people arriving in Waterloo already. And you didn't have to get lost in your GPS the way I did, coming up Platinum Road, Wilmot Road, coming up Columbia, to know that a lot of those folks are coming to the west side. That's why some innovation is needed, folks. We have to look at things differently. A lot of what I've heard is a lot of the same approach. It was good in the 80s and the 90s, slow and steady. Look around, folks. We've got growth unheard of in any city in Canada our size. This is changing things. So our first 100-day plan, the innovation industry that I grew up in, we do sprints, we do things quickly. And I don't want my son or his friends to spend another 4 years while we're assessing their needs. You folks know what you need. Quick assessment of what's already being used in our community can bring the missing pieces of it. We've got some land near the university. There's collaborative ways of working together that are already in place. There's land as well that's available. Whether it's big or small, there are ways to get this done. There's more people coming here. It does need to be paid for. These are things that is a management issue. Again, it comes down to management, folks. It comes down to listening to our communities, assessing what we have, making better use of the space we have, the space that we need, both indoor space and outdoor space. So the land that we can preserve and make better use of, makes better use of all of our dollars and gives our kids and our children better use of their city.
Be a question later, you might want to comment on getting lost coming in Platinum and roll online and stuff. Might be relevant. Dorothy, go ahead.
So, yeah, recreation facilities and services, obviously, I feel that that's extremely important. I'm an active user myself of, of many of the services in the city. But one of the things, I mean, of course, we do need to consult with the neighborhood and really understand what people out here are looking for, but also take that macro level of what other people kind of in the adjacent neighborhoods may also need. And one of the ideas I had around this, and of course, consultation and that is required, but is the possibility of adding a new soccer field to an area like this, and a soccer field that would be big enough that could also include a walking track, so that it could be used obviously in the summer and the fall and the spring, but that could also have the space there to be domed. So because that is certainly something that that in talking to a number of the sports associations, particularly Waterloo United Soccer, that if we had a facility like that in Waterloo, we could host tournaments, provincial tournaments. We could bring other cities in. It's a real revenue stream and a significant revenue stream and generator. And we could use that not only just for soccer tournaments, but if we built it for multi-purpose and had one of my daughters is a runner, so I know that any outside of the summer months, if she is going to competitions, we have to go to Toronto, primarily to York University. So if we took that kind of view of saying, things can be more than one, we can do more than one thing at one time with a piece of infrastructure like that, and build it with the idea that we can dome it, I think that would be a really fantastic opportunity. I think there's also ways that we can be really innovative as well with outdoor space. I'm sure some of you have been to places, certainly in some of my travels, where they build workout equipment and things like that are outdoor in a park area. And it's not just for kids, it's also for adults. And it's a great way to interact with your neighbors and community. But it's just, again, another way to use space really creatively. And it would be at very low cost or no cost to the citizens. So sorry, I keep going over time, but Buzz, it's Bob the Buzz. Sorry.
Thanks, Shannon. Finish up on this question.
Besides the fact, I think Brad the Buzzer may have his own cartoon show.
Yeah.
So thank you for bearing with us. Yeah, I'm so glad that the city is prioritizing a recreation facility, and kudos to the current council and team there that are listening to that real need. And it is going to be tricky. That's not, I mean, we've just talked about affordability, we talked about taxes, we've talked about a lot of challenges and just the overall costs today. So I honor and, the keen eye to try to find the land, find the space to maximize the opportunities. I think that's really what I've been hearing and meeting people across Vista Hills and West Side communities is, there are multi-needs, and we've heard some great ideas of some of those needs tonight. Some of the other ones I've heard about more tennis court facilities. I've heard about more community space for a variety of community groups, for seniors groups and young families. So it is about figuring out what are those key needs and the gaps, and then where we can, let's be honest here, we may not be able to boil the ocean and serve every need. So where we can, how we can continue to do great things like you're doing tonight, which is working with the school board. It's so nice to host us. What are some of the ways that we can continue to deepen the partnership? And Director of Education of the school board spoke just last Friday about our schools as really community hubs of community. And so I would be interested also in continuing to build on the partnership and looking at where we can help to fill gaps. And Royce also mentioned too, we have the West Side Employment Lands Generation Park coming in. So I'd also like to look, when we're looking at site planning, if there are continued needs that are not being met for these community spaces, then how do we knit that all together to serve the needs across the West End?
The next question's another topic of lots of conversation in the city of Waterloo, and that's the new speed limits that are being proposed. So recently, City of Waterloo Council voted to lower the speed limits in residential streets to 30 kilometers an hour with some exceptions. This change was against both the City of Waterloo staff recommendation and the results of an engaged WR Waterloo Region Survey of City of Waterloo residents. So we're asking if you can please explain your position on the speed limits going forward. Some of the concerns that were present by people in Vista Hills was there really is a lack of enforcement on city streets. So will the change really do anything? Will people slow down? Some people feel 30 kilometers an hour is just too slow. Some people think there's concern that we're going to be different than Kitchener and the other regional municipalities. And then other people are concerned that it's going to cost $500,000 roughly to change the signs. Certainly everybody wants our kids to be safe on our streets, so that's the greatest concern, but we'd love to hear everyone's opinion on this going forward into the next council and session. Khalid, you're next.
Okay. This is the most controversial issue. Yeah. Honestly, I understand the approach that the council voted for speed limit, because maybe one of the big principles is safety, not only for our kids, for everybody. But at the same time, I think since there's some objection from the staff and some people, there's some people that when I'm doing my door knocking around the neighborhood, everybody was expressing they're not happy with this decision. Although some people don't know the background, how it was voted for. But I think we might need to revisit this one, and we have more broader consultation and engagement of the public, so we can educate them the benefits, and we agree on to keep it, or maybe to restore it, or maybe use some other creative ways how to make some become at the midway. So, for example, one of the things we can maybe make the speed limit at certain times of the day, for example, especially around the school, because honestly, 30 kilometers per hour, that's really feels slow. And some people are telling me it's better for me to ride my bike than use my car. So everybody's opinion is different, but I think in order not to, because here as a council member or councillor, we need to listen to our people and try to educate them with the decision, not just oppose for the sake of opposing. And if something that works for the benefit for the community at large and for our safety, then we can come to the conclusion that we need to keep it or maybe restore it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Rob? Thank you, Jake. You said it first. This is a safety issue, folks. And whenever you have a council, well-meaning, feel like they must be a catch-all for every single neighborhood across Waterloo or Kitchener or Cambridge, that's when you get neighbors unhappy. I live uptown. Speed limit there on Albert, it's a bit of a racetrack now. The streets were dug up for a long time. One of the things that our neighborhood association, just like Vista Hills, care about is when the city listens to us. Some of the city staff, they had some good recommendations, but it's not a catch-all. Every neighborhood is different. This is a safety issues for our kids who walk to school, for folks who bike to school, bike to work, drive to work. Speed limits are important. We have rules. Some rules make sense. You folks, well, just like in management, people closest to the issue often know it best. The neighborhoods know what speed limits are safe for their kids, a lot of them. So I feel like the city, and of course, we leaders, can do a better job listening to our neighborhoods. With all the staff and the resources that we have in the city and our region, whose job it is, it's not a catch-all for everybody. Your neighborhood needs to be safe, so does mine. We all live in the same community. One speed limit does not fit everybody. So if there's a speed limit needs to be changed, the neighborhood knows, let's listen, let's act on it. Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks for the question, Jake, and for whoever posed it there. Just a couple of things to be clear about. So my understanding is that actually staff did recommend to council that speed limits should be lowered.
To 40.
To 40, right? And so council, so I think there in some, with the reporting of this by the media has lost some of the nuance in it. So staff did recommend that speed limits be lowered. Council went beyond where staff was, and based on some research, my understanding is that they had done with a number of other cities, Ottawa being one of them, to say eventually we're going in the World Health Organization's recommendation as well about the need to lower speed limits in order to save, you know, as you mentioned, it's a safety issue. And so my understanding is council thought eventually we're going to have to get there anyway, so why not do it now? The nuance in it that I think the media has missed is that it's side streets, it's not the collector streets, and it's not regional roads. So it is side streets. So there is that difference as well. But overall, the way I look at these issues is that this should not be so much an enforcement issue as an engineering issue, right? Streets have been designed in such a way that drivers go too fast, generally speaking, right? And the challenge is in the road design. There's ways to design roads, we know this, that will automatically slow people down without signs, without stop signs, without speed cameras and traffic circles and things like that. So that's a long-term fix that I think the city needs to really take seriously. There's ways to do that and it's proven, right? In the short term, I mean, one of the things when you talk about enforcement, one of the things that could be potentially more feasible rather than adding signs everywhere is adding some speed cameras, right? I would see that as potentially another solution rather than these signs that are going up everywhere. So long term though, this is a road design issue that we need to fix.
Shannon?
Thanks. And I do believe, and across the city, I've heard strongly that people in general want some form of traffic calming. it's just, a lot of it is a difference of opinion on what would work, but none of us are, master transportation planners. So there are many complexities to this issue, but I do appreciate in a neighborhood context, some neighborhoods are feeling more ready for this than others, or maybe believe that it will naturally slow folks. And so what I would like to do, working with ward councillors, neighborhood associations within the neighborhoods, to look at if the phasing in of this approach will be, how that would possibly work, and if there are other traffic calming measures that would be more appropriate. I know in my ward councillor has expressed, and even as recently as council, if anybody was following council meeting on Monday, that she would like to look at that again. And I think that just shows, and I have to give kudos to Royce and anyone who is in that role, to be able to continue to listen and be open to continuing to take in the information, this evolution of thinking, trying to think towards the future in planning, and taking in all those inputs and really being open to listen and accessible as a leader and working collaboratively, sometimes even hearing voices that may be difficult to hear, is what we need to continue to do. And I just recognize that there is not a one size fits all solution. It's a difficult conversation, but at the same time, I do believe we are moving in some good direction around traffic calming, and I'd like to see more of those conversations at the localized or neighborhood level to make sure that the traffic calming is working in those neighborhoods.
Thank you. And before we go on to Royce, maybe I'll ask a specific question to the candidates for mayor. I watched a bit of the Rogers debate last week where Mike Farwell asked specifically, do you support 30, 40, or 50? I've yet to really hear if you actually want to state, do you support 30, 40, or 50? Is there any you want to maybe stake that claim here?
I can at least say this, if I can.
Sure.
It's neighborhood specific. There's no catch-all speed limit. Simple and specific solutions. Listen to our neighborhoods. Make sure that we're keeping ourselves safe when we're on the roads.
Dorothy, Shannon, do you want to add anything?
Sure. I mean, I'd say, with all due respect, Rob, I think if you're trying to say we're going to have different speed limits in different neighborhoods, you're going to have chaos across the city, right? It's like, do I go 30 here? Do I go 40 there? Do I go 60 somewhere else? So again, I think that's not really, when you look at the macro level of a city, you're not like, we're talking about speed limits for a city. So again, I think it's probably not going to be popular, but I'll just say it. I think 30 kilometers an hour is an appropriate speed limit on the side streets, right? I think the safety issue is too high. And again, but I come back to, I'm not a traffic engineer, but it's easy enough to look up the research and find it and understand that. I mean, look at lots of other cities. There's ways to design these roads. So that safety is ensured, speed is reduced. You don't need signs everywhere. And I think that's really where we have to go.
Yeah, when I travel around the city, I do actually see a number of different speed limits because we have the different context of different roads, arterial roads and whatnot.
Well,
which can also be, which could also be confusing, I know, but I do think that we have to look at a neighborhood context. So what I've heard, especially in community or neighborhoods like in Uptown, there is strong support for 30 kilometers an hour. That's what I've heard from those consultations. I'm hearing some different feedback from some other neighborhoods. So I would just like us to try to look at this from a neighborhood level where possible, and look at that implementation and working with folks in the neighborhood. And I agree, we need to look at some other traffic calming measures. There are other built form and other traffic calming measures that might fit the context of other neighborhoods differently. So I think we do need to look at this at a neighborhood level.
Thanks. I'm sorry to go back there before I got to you, Royce, but it is your amendment, so
Yeah, so I guess maybe I'll start by apologizing to the candidates for introducing this, because I'm extremely passionate about this particular topic, and yes, I will publicly in support that we should continue to go to 30 kilometers an hour in our neighborhood streets. As Dorothy said, it's important to note this is not all streets. We're not talking about Regional Road. We're not talking about Columbia Street. We're not talking about Platte. What we're talking about is the first little bit of your trip through your neighborhood and the last little bit of your trip through someone else's neighborhood. And those are the places where our children are playing, where they are walking to school, where they are going to parks, where there are less official crossings, where they are crossing the street to meet with their friends. And I have been doing it. It's very hard at the outset to do it. Ask my wife later. We've been doing it for 2 years. 30 kilometers an hour in the neighborhood streets is very possible to do. It takes some effort to get to it. But when you do it, you feel much safer driving on those roads. And it has added about 30 seconds to my trip. I am not notoriously late. In fact, I was the first one here. So, and I think it's important to note that we know that it works. There's data from across the world, local data as well too, that shows that lowering the speed limits is effective without any changes to enforcement and signage, which are with enforcement of road design, which are also needed, of course. Cities like Ottawa, Toronto, Montreal, Banff, and a host of cities around the world have done this. And this data comes out that shows that there's a 12% reduction in fatalities in the places that have done this, a 20% reduction in serious injuries, and between a 24 and 56% reduction in simple accidents in the places that have already implemented this. It is not a silver bullet. And what I will bring this back to is, as I've knocked on doors, I know traffic safety is the #1 issue in the neighborhood, #1 by far. And we've done a lot at the city of Waterloo, and there's more to do. And I'll just wrap up here real quick. One of the things that I would like to advocate for in the next budget, and I know we talked about budget, is to increase the budget in our transportation department for low-cost traffic calming implementations. Those are the things that we can do tomorrow, not the speed bumps and the whole road design and all of that stuff that are very expensive and hard to do. But safe streets requires big picture thinking, like the speed limits reductions and that granular action that I'm talking about with the traffic calming initiatives.
Great, thanks,
Jacob,
everyone.
can I some comment?
Sure, quickly.
Yeah, so just with respect to the speed limit, I think there's another factor, which is the behavior factor of humans, which is we cannot control at all. So this comes down to enforcement, law enforcement issue, which is we cannot put police on every street. So I think here comes, we need to, education becomes a very essential tool that we need to educate the people and the community about the safety issue, how it's important. And also the other thing, some people ask, why 30, why not 35? So we need to have also some scientific evidence or proof that we have chosen this limit because of those facts, also that backed by scientific or other research, local research, that's gonna maybe come along with the other international, other cities. Because some cities have a different cultural backgrounds. So like Toronto, you cannot imagine the behavior of people there. So we are more stable and calm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, the next question is not as big from a city perspective, but it's very important to the people of Vista Hills. And that's there's significant concerns from the residents of Vista Hills regarding the state and maintenance of our parks, as well as the overall maintenance, such as grass cutting on boulevards, snow removal by the city. Many in the city has felt that the city is forgotten we even exist out here. And they're upset that with our increasing tax bills, that the city's not doing some of these more basic service functions. Please explain your position and path forward if elected. And Rob, this is your turn.
Thank you. So again, a management issue. When we look at how to solve these problems, it starts with the community. So when we listen to our community, they're saying they're being left out on some degree. You can study this. We can and we should. When we study this, we learn there's high traffic areas that aren't being maintained properly by anybody. Sometimes when that happens, it's a community issue because there's folks and there's neighborhoods that have different ways of maintaining their properties. And what's been uptown, you'll see exactly a neighborhood-wide issue. What I've heard from folks in Vista Hills is there are specific areas, pockets, that we can do a better job of maintaining. And whenever that happens, we look to who can take care of it. Some cases it is the city. Other cases it's business nearby. Way in and out of roads. We can't always plow every road at the same time. That'd be nice. Can't shovel every single road But if there's places that are unsafe, you can take care of Vista Hills. So in listening to our communities, finding those spots that are priorities, you can map this out, it's already been done. And also you overlay what the city and the neighborhoods know about their own community. You can look absolutely at the priority areas. And should Vista Hills be left behind? No. We have to start listening to you folks. So in those corridor areas where there can be a better way to make things safe for people to walk, bike, and drive, those are the things that we're going to do.
So, yeah, it's unfortunate that you feel like the city is maybe not seeing or hearing you as much as you'd like to. And one of the things that I certainly am committed to doing as mayor is to work really closely with our neighborhood associations in a number of ways to neighbors to make sure that you're drawn into the discussions, and certainly through the local councillors as well, to make sure that we are communicating clearly through you and with you on some of the issues of like the maintenance and things like that. Again, during my time at the city of Kitchener, I mean, it was pretty regular to have calls into the office about, the grass crew comes through and then the trim crew comes through a couple of weeks later, and that is really frustrating for neighbors, because you do want your properties to look nice and you do want your neighborhoods to look nice. But so some of that is, streamlining services and looking at where we can do better with staff and in terms of directing resources. But one of the questions that I'd like to investigate when I'm mayor is that my time? Oh, okay. Is to look at the potential, maybe starting as a pilot project, and maybe Vista Hills might be a community to start it, is to, instead of having grass on some of these boulevards, is to look at having native plants or native wildflowers, or, I'm not an I'm a gardener, but I don't know all the right names, but to have something like that, where we don't just have grass, we actually have something that's a bee pollinator, that's maybe fruit, small fruit trees or things that people could, urban forestry that people could eat from, or, it would just enliven and make the area that much more beautiful. I could see a neighborhood like this as a place to test that out and see what's possible, right? And maybe then potentially rolling it out through the rest of the city. And that might save some staff time. It certainly would be helpful for the environment and climate change, and would really beautify a neighborhood. So that's a creative solution. I think it's a creative solution that we could consider.
Thank you, Shannon.
On things like snow clearing, and I know that, and especially this past season, I think we all felt the challenges in the city's operations, felt the challenges of quite a season of adverse weather events. But the city actually did recently have an audit and accountability review, I think, right, the term is correct, that actually came back with some really tangible recommendations to optimize, more effectively use technology, optimizing the fleet and clearing, especially around priority areas like schools, transit nodes, thinking through an accessibility lens. And they also found opportunities to save money in the budget for snow clearing. So there may be some consideration, I think, that we can say, okay, now what could we maybe do? Saving is great, but maybe we can start to look at how those resources are reallocated to continue to improve in areas that we're hearing, or we've found in the audit that are maybe underserved, or having some accessibility issues. And especially, I know for families trying to sometimes navigate and get through trails and paths and things to school with littles. I have a friend in my neighborhood who for months of the year, she knows she just can't take her children to school because she uses a wheelchair, and she doesn't have that option because the trail from her backyard to the school is not cleared in time for the bell time. So we have to think about, and I know the city is working on this, and I will absolutely champion more effective use of those resources with the fleet and snow clearing. And on really quickly on things, I think we had a question about waste pickup and a graffiti also in neighborhoods. Some things that I've seen really effective, we've started the block connector program in the neighborhood strategy, but I don't think that that's really spread wide. And I'd like to see how we can engage more folks, including our youth, who are often looking for ways to engage and be empowered in creating a great neighborhood. How we can look at connecting that through our neighborhood strategy, through our park strategy, and issues around safety and vibrant neighborhoods. I think there's real opportunity to empower more of our residents, including our youth, to be a part of that.
Thanks, Jake. And I'd also like to highlight from the Audit and Accountability Fund, one of the key findings was the need for a west side maintenance facility that will alleviate some of the pressures on the snow clearing team that has to come out here, run out of salt, and then drive all the way across town before they come back out here. So hopefully as that gets built, that'll have some improvements out in the west end too. But I really want to talk about the part of the question that's related to the state of parks. For me, I have had a consistent how do we get to yes approach when it comes to parks in the Vista Hills community. I can recall early in the infancy of the neighborhood association here in Vista Hills, meeting at Starbucks with external consultants from a developer who had no requirements to meet with us. But I made that happen, and I met, and we heard that folks wanted swings in Beach Drops Park. And again, had no authority to make that happen because it was a developer park, but now it has swings, and I appreciate everybody in the neighborhood association for advocating for that. When it comes to the community garden in Sundew Park, the community garden in Sundew Park took some significant challenges, not only with the city, but with some neighbors who were concerned about some of what was going to happen in conjunction with the community garden. And I worked closely with external mediators, staff, neighbors, to come to a compromise solution on that is working so wonderfully well. And I would just give a shout out to some of the garden team who's here today for building the first ever City of Waterloo accessible garden box, which is incredible. And the rink team at Sundew Park, who had extraordinary challenges with the city because there was some grading challenges at the park that was preventing the rink from being built. And I worked with staff to ensure that we would allow not only them to try and build the rink even in spite of these grading challenges, but go back the next year and regrade the park to ensure that it was going to be in great working condition going forward. I have consistently shown that, and every time I walk past these things and see folks utilizing them, I take a great sense of pride, but know that none of this can be done without the work, incredible work of all the volunteers for all of those organizations that I referenced here in Vista Hills, and I'm committed to continuing to work with those folks to address those challenges.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, yes, like maintaining our parks and trails and clearing snow is one of the most important things to keep our community vital and even healthy all over the year. So I think the maintenance is one of basically it's going to be management issue, and also funds allocation issue, where we have to come with use some artificial intelligence to come with some frameworks, how we allocate our budget wisely and cost effectively across the city. And also it's a need issue. So if we're talking about equality and fairness, so everybody in the city should receive the same level of service and awareness. So I'm sorry to hear that you feel that you forget here at the West End, but I think this comes with some challenge to the city maybe, and I know the city and the council working on that, and in the future I hope we're going to do some improvement. But also we need the engagement and the partnership of the public at large, because I mean volunteering in between neighbors would be one of the measures that we can increase. Also, the city also can work on other partnerships between local businesses to help with clearing the snow, especially during some severe storm times. I know that can happen, and that can be done voluntarily or with some buying the surface for them for some specific days. I know some people in my neighborhood, for example, they have a lot of trucks, so maybe they can have easily they can use put some place and then help do some snow clearing, and sometimes. But also that will depend on keeping listening to our public and people, and try to also work on more collective approach to address all these issues.
very much. We're done 5 of the 8 questions right now, and an hour and a half in, so I think we're gonna take a little 5-minute break. If anyone needs to maybe do the bathroom, get some fresh air or whatnot, we'll start back up at 8:35. Okay, thanks, everyone. All right, thanks, everybody. We'll get started back up again here and try and keep things going to keep our kind of in target time and line here. So our next question is, the City of Waterloo completed Engaged Waterloo Region survey regarding open air backyard fires or recreational fires in 2021. I believe according to that survey, about 81% of survey respondents voted that they wanted to have recreational fires in their backyard, similar to the City of Kitchener's bylaw and the allowance right now. However, it didn't get approved in the current council. So please explain your position and path forward if elected, and Dorothy's here to start.
Okay, thanks for reconvening and sticking with us, everyone. So backyard fires. Again, when I was just building on some of my experience from my time at the City of Kitchener, this was an issue that they discussed, I think it was about 2013 or so, and had a significant consultation. So, but where the City of Kitchener landed, I mean, often people say, you know, the City of Kitchener can have backyard fires. Why can't we in Waterloo have backyard fires? City of Kitchener's bylaws are really restrictive. Like, there's actually not that many places there that can have backyard fires, because you have to be about 5 meters away from any type of object that could actually catch fire. So it's a pretty restrictive bylaw that they have there. So I just wanted to make sure that people are aware of that. It's not sort of the open access that the media portrays that the City of Kitchener has. And I know that because I've got scars on my back from listening. You know, we had well over 3,000 people probably contact the mayor and council's office at the time to express their opinion. And I get the equity argument for it. And I, you know, because there's some people that this is a, you know, maybe more lower income, that this is a you know, an activity for their kids and things like that. But ultimately where I come down on this, and in keeping with my my climate change hat on, is that ultimately I think we all need to do what we can and do our individual parts to drive down carbon emissions wherever possible. So in terms of where do I land on the side of backyard fires, I'm going to say that I think council made the right call on this, and where, I mean, that is what staff recommended to council as well. I get that it's a tough decision and a tough issue. And I understand that disappointed some people, but I do want to remind people that the City of Kitchener is very restrictive as well. And there's very few places that can that have properties large enough to do that. So.
I do appreciate, I mean, all these are complex questions, and there was a lot of thought that went into the decision. I was hopeful that we would be able to implement the pilot program. That was proposed as an option. It was option C for backyard fires. I'm also hopeful because we were chatting with this earlier with all the folks that are involved in ice rinks. I know a number of neighborhoods have thought about could we have this in other community spaces. We attempted to do that with the one and only community fire pit, if that's what we can call it, in the City of Waterloo. And I think there's a recognition, and I hope that we can also look at the ability to have some more permanent infrastructure for gathering in the winter, because we don't want people to be isolated in their homes. There's a lot of activity, and I know in our neighborhood, in this neighborhood, and other neighborhoods that's happening outside. Even if you can't use ice skates, if you just want to build a little snow fort or just be outside and have an opportunity to gather with neighbors. I think that's really what it's about. You know, truth be told, I am personally allergic to smoke, but I also, but what I'm not allergic to is people trying to build community, trying to get outside, trying to come together. And I'm hopeful that we can revisit the pilot program.
Thank you, Bryce.
So I hate to be the fun police here, but everybody knows how I voted last time on this. So I will share sort of what went into the decision making from my perspective at council, and what was the lens through which I decided that continuing the backyard fire ban as it is should continue. There's a few things. So the first one was the cost. We were advised by staff that there would be a $430,000 per year cost to implement a backyard fire program, and that was based on the number of bylaw complaints that they see in places that do this, like the city of Kitchener, which in some years has as many as 4 times the number of bylaw complaints related to backyard fires as the city of Waterloo has, in addition to some of the fire safety concerns which led to the staff recommendation. As Dorothy said, or I will elaborate on what Dorothy said, the vast majority of larger municipalities do not permit backyard fires under any circumstances. We happen to have a neighbor to the south that does, but only 4 of the 31 largest municipalities in Ontario actually do allow them. So we are safely in the majority of municipalities who have made this decision. And those that do have very strict rules, as Dorothy had alluded to. And most residents, including most residents in Vista Hills, would not be able to comply with the bylaw as written in the city of Kitchener, let alone some of the more restrictive ones in the other 3 municipalities. But my approach, I did an informal survey. I knocked on 500 doors before this decision in each of my neighborhoods, 100 doors each, including in Vista Hills, to get some feedback on things like fires, chickens, and leaves, to see what people had to say about those things. And it was split, almost exactly 50-50, slightly more than 50% of folks told me that they wanted to keep the bylaw ban as it is. And of course, when you've got a split community, these are very challenging decisions, which leads me to the last lens that I took on this, which is the lens of our most vulnerable residents, our folks who suffer from breathing difficulties. And when I received a phone call from folks who live in Kitchener, who are experiencing backyard fires every day, from people who do not care about what's happening in the city of Waterloo with backyard fire bylaw, saying, I can't enjoy my property, I can't go for walks in the neighborhood, I have to close my windows. These are all things that are really, really challenging for me to overlook. And I mean, it speaks to the fact that at the end of the day, smoke from wood fires simply does not respect people's property.
Yeah, thank you. So I think the backyard fire, I think it's a safety issue in the first place, and also it has some also environmental impact, as Dorothy said. So again, I mean, based on the staff recommendation, I think they have done maybe some surveys or some public engagement, but again, maybe the idea of having some pilot project might work, but also we have to take into consideration the safety of the neighbors also, and the health stats of the neighbors also. And also maybe putting more restrictive measures just to ensure that everybody is safe, and then maybe watch that, and after some trial pilot project, then we come to another conclusion. But also, as Earl said, the smoke does not I mean, differentiate between somebody has breathing issues, somebody has some other I mean, allergy to smoke. And it's really going to be bothering. Like I see in my neighborhood, some people, when they do some barbecue itself, you know, they have to close your windows, and sometimes during the summertime you need some fresh air, right? So you don't need to miss that good weather sometimes. So I think we might support some pilot project and then revisit that again.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. So this is another clear issue, I think, of when I hear my colleagues up here approach this with more administration, more rules. We can have barbecues, but we can't have a backyard fire. I went to summer camp growing up, being in nature, enjoying my space, having a controlled small fire, something that homeowners like, something they want, something they're going to get on Mayor Waterloo. But rules exist for a reason. So we talked to the fire services already. We know where there's concern. It's time we treat homeowners like adults. Small backyard controlled fires within minimum separation distance, side yard setback, in houses. There are safe ways to have small controlled backyard enjoyment of the outdoors. And I'm not afraid to say that. So that's one of the many things. I don't know if you call it an innovation because it happens in our city next door. But these are little things. And folks, there's bigger issues to be had, but this is something that we all enjoy. That some people can enjoy it. If you don't want to, you don't have to have one. But it is a privilege to have some space to be able to enjoy it. I'm not a fan of big government, and some things just make common sense. You don't need a PhD to know that people enjoy their outdoor space. I know because I live with someone who has one too. But there are some decisions that are simple, and that's an easy one. So backyard fires should be coming back to Waterloo when I'm there. Thanks.
Thanks very much. All right, the next question is a bit of a broader one, but it regards climate action and basically your position on what the city should or maybe shouldn't be doing in regards to climate change, specifically with future city developments, densification, the cost, et cetera, with it. Shannon, it's your turn to start.
Thank you. Well, we have some big targets, and we've taken some bold leadership at the city and the regional level on climate action. And so now it's about looking at what are the tools that we have as a municipality, especially when we're looking at growth and development, because we're weighing that with the other crisis that we have right now, which is an affordable housing crisis. And so what I'd like to do, and I know we have the knowledge already locally, consult with a number of folks around this issue, is the opportunity to use municipal tools to encourage development that is both affordable as well as using sustainable infrastructure. And that includes retrofitting. And there have been ideas that have been shared about what that could look like, other municipalities that have done this. And one idea, and if you would like to learn more about the priorities that I have around affordable housing and smart growth, they are on my website. But one idea is to use a community improvement plan tool, which we've been using for years already in the Uptown, but other municipalities use a community improvement plan tool to encourage both affordable housing tools as well as affordable housing developments, as well as more sustainable infrastructure. So that could look something like using more energy efficient infrastructure. For example, heat pumps is an example that has been researched and suggested. And that not only can help to tackle some of our climate change issues and our targets, but also making energy costs more affordable. So I think that is something, and there are other municipal tools that we can be using to encourage that type of development and retrofitting in our community.
Thank you, Bryce.
Yeah, thanks for this question. Climate action is one of the pillars of my campaign. I know how important climate action is to the residents of the city of Waterloo. I was at the climate march in 2019, and I've never seen so many people in the square, along the parking garage across the street, young and old, inspiring leaders to act and to make change when it comes to climate action. I also know how important it is to the residents of Ward 2. It's particularly acute. As I referenced earlier, we have forest on all three sides, provincially protected. The Waterloo Moraine is just on the other side of the Wilmot line, which provides the entire region with its drinking water sources, the highest sustained area of the moraine. We only have 2 council terms remaining to meet the goal that we have of cutting greenhouse gas emissions in half by 2030. And that's why personally, I've worked very hard as the council liaison to the Sustainability Advisory Committee. I took the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Climate Leadership course for elected officials, and I joined the Climate Caucus, which represents elected officials across the country. We declared a climate emergency at the city of Waterloo in this last term, and that led to a few things. One is an energy roadmap that shows us what we need to do at the city to show leadership in reducing our greenhouse gas emissions across our facilities in the city. I'm really proud that I introduced an amendment to the West Side employment lands that will ensure that all the new buildings built in the employment lands will be built with sustainable development guidelines, the first of its kind for an employment park anywhere to our knowledge in Canada, because every building we build today that is not net zero or net zero ready is a building that needs to be retrofitted in the not too distant future. And there is more to do at the city of Waterloo. We have to implement that corporate climate action plan. We also need a community green building policy that takes some of what we learned with the employment lands and applies it to the development community for how they're building homes. There, like any major challenge that's worth tackling, there is no silver bullet to the climate action crisis, but I'm personally committed to ensuring that the city of Waterloo does its part and is a leader in the low carbon future.
Thanks, Bryce.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I think everybody knows that the climate change is not like a local level concern, but it's a global concern too. So I think it's a collective effort between cities, countries, but also. So But we have at the same time have to do what we have to do to lower the carbon emissions. And I think one of the ways that we need to work together with development, also with the city, with the local, also to increase the awareness and use the tools to lower the gas emissions. So one of the examples that we can encourage as an architect, we can encourage the green architecture, where we can use those measures to come to the zero net. And I think also there are, I work with some other cities in terms of the development that they encourage people to use some electrical heaters rather than using the natural gas furnace, just to lower the gas, and they give some incentive. So this is maybe could be a measure also to encourage people, not only for the new development, but also the current residents. For example, encourage the solar panels, for example, or some other ways to minimize the green house gas. Also, we can work with some other building materials, because if we see like developments, when you tell developer or builder use like green energy measures or whatever the policy or strategy in, you have to take into consideration how those materials were produced at the factory at the beginning. Now, the big example is everybody now is going for the electric vehicles, but they forget that the electricity is already going to burn more gas at the plant. So that actually you minimizing the gas here locally, but you increasing it somewhere else there. So we need to come with some more approaches for that too. And just in the last minute, I know some startup companies here at the University of Waterloo, the incubators, they have very good and innovative ideas. So I think we need to work with them to give them more support, and they have very good creative solutions for that. Yeah.
Excellent. So this is something that we agree on.
Yeah.
Climate change is real, folks. And for our kids' sake and for Earth, my gosh, there's every way we can do this. But there's something that's been missing when communities don't take a leadership role in this. And it generally stems from the economic side of things. True sustainability, what that really means, it's protection of the environment, making good decisions, making efficient use of what resources we have, but to interlayer that with the economic aspects of it so that it becomes truly sustainable. And that's a modern, more innovative way of applying sustainability that's a little bit different from the 70s and 80s and 90s that we've learned from today. We've got smart universities here. So my work with being a board director on OCTA, Ontario's Clean Technology Association, some of the leadership that we did was make Ontario the single largest market on earth for solar and wind. Now, that's just one example of true leadership when I've been working with federal, provincial, local governments, and with business. It's that collaboration that you were talking about exactly. And when we as mayor and working with council are implementing the right types of work with business or collaborating with our universities, that's when good change happens. That's smart decisions that bring generational dividends for our children, for us, and for communities down the road. So climate change is something that I'm very passionate about. And there's economic and very sustainable ways of being smarter with how we build things. Green fleets. We're talking about different ways of accessing different modalities of transportation that are smarter, making our fleets greener, making the buildings that we build not only safer, but smarter. Evolve One, a few blocks away, folks. It's Canada's first net zero building. We can do more of those types of things. Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks, Jake, and thanks for that important question from the group that it came from. Action on climate change and more urgent action on climate change is one of the key reasons that I'm running. And I think the city of Waterloo has done quite a bit. I think there's particularly a lot more that can be done at the regional level as well. And that is, as I said, one of the key reasons why I'm running. It's something I've been involved with and pushing forward on for many, many years as part of Climate Action Waterloo Region, one of the committee members on the Transportation Committee. I've been involved with Reap Green Solutions and Sustainable Waterloo Region for years. So a few things that I think the city, that I would look to do at the city is to, I know there's green development standards that have been implemented for public buildings, but I'd like to see those standards put in place, discussed and put in place for private buildings as well, because you know, once a building's built, I mean, that's the time to put in geothermal, heat pumps, solar panels, green roofs, all that rainwater capture, all that kind of stuff. Retrofitting is expensive. It can be done, of course, but it's expensive and much more challenging and to do. But one of the other things that I think about Waterloo, and one of the things that I've outlined on my platform, if you'd like to visit it, McCabe for Mayor, is that I call Waterloo a big idea city. But I haven't seen sort of in the last number of years, sort of that big strategic vision that Waterloo used to have, right? So one of the things that I'd like to do as mayor is to establish like a Team Waterloo advisory table. And I see potentially climate change is one of those things that we need to pull together stakeholders. We've got the brain power, we've got the resources in Waterloo from the university and the college, the universities and the college, as well as from our tech community and our nonprofits like Sustainable Waterloo Region and REAP and some others, to really come up with some really great solutions to some of these big problems. And I think climate change is one of those things that we really should tackle.
Perfect, thank you very much. Our last question that we've had planned here is more of a local question, but the residents of Vista Hills are interested, obviously, in a connection to Wilmot Line. Getting out of the subdivision is improved with the building of Platinum, but it's still difficult. A connection to Wilmot Line would improve community accessibility, mitigate traffic issues, and improve emergency response times. As well, some residents have seen historical plans to connect to the Wilmot Line, and unfortunately, some might have been promised a connection by builders or real estate agents that were looking to sell a home. Please explain your position and path forward if elected. Might be appropriate, Royce, you're going first, and you probably know the most about this subject.
Fun police again, I guess. Right? Okay, so it is truly unfortunate that some residents have been told by misinformed folks and or intentionally deceptive folks that there would be access to the Wilmot Line. The truth of the matter is that, quite frankly, we would literally not be here today if access to the Wilmot Line was on the table. This subdivision was appealed when it was built or when it was proposed a number of years back to the Ontario Municipal Board. It was appealed and the region, the township, and the city were all parties to that appeal, and it was approved conditionally that it would not connect to the Wilmot Line. So that's the short answer. The long answer is that the Wilmot Line is a very challenging road. If you've ever been onto that road, there are significant safety issues on that road. It has significant grading challenges, and it's a beautiful rural country road. And so, excuse me, if we were to do anything about accessing that road, safety would have to be at the number one priority on looking at it. And coming along with that safety means that we're doing huge digging of the grading in order to make the road AODA compliant and safe for cars and pedestrians and cyclists. And that would mean also looking at how it cuts directly through the provincially protected environmentally sensitive lands to the north, and how we would look at its impact on the, as I said, highest sustained location of the Waterloo Moraine in the entire region, which provides us with all of our drinking water. Folks at municipalities who have screwed around with their fresh drinking water source have done so at their peril. And I would not encourage us to be screwing around with the countryside line where the Wilmot Line is and encouraging thousands and thousands of more cars onto the street. It would also put significant pressure on development out to that area of the city, as developers would look at a new fancy well-built road and say, why can't I build a new subdivision on the other side, which is a complete no-go from the region's perspective at this stage. As Jake noted, Platinum Drive was the great compromise, and I'm happy that it was built in my term of council. And I will share one last thing, is that I think one of the things that will significantly improve traffic in this area as well too is the widening of Herb Street out to Wilmot Line from basically from Fisher Hall and all the way through to 4 lanes, alongside the city's commitment to building a bypass road from the Canadian Tire Plaza directly through the hydro cut into the boardwalk to alleviate pressure on everyone's favorite roundabout at Urban Ursula.
Great,
Yeah, okay, thank you. So again, this is, I think, obviously is a planning and safety issue, and maybe different jurisdictions complex issue. I don't have any background other than what Rose said now, but I think if there's significant issues with the drinking water, with increasing traffic and safety, I think connecting it will maybe create more problems maybe to the city or the neighbor Vermont area. But also, as I mentioned before, this could be like solved like at the other stage at the development stage. If the city like forces the developer to have like 2 lanes just for better commute and traffic. But I know all those developers that go around some requirements because they will lose land and then they will lose profit. So I think now we can just work with what's been here and try to improve it. And is there a chance in the future to revisit that? Maybe that would be another option.
Those of us who know Vista Hills, we know this issue is one of to more simply define it, trying to fix history. A lot of us are here because we know that this is a great community to live in. We know that having a gravel road that's half paved and happens to be a township road, 100% owned, unlike most city adjacent roads that are often owned, that are adjacent to townships are often 50% owned by the city, 50% owned by the township. So to some degree, there's going to have to be some compromise one way or another, and it's going to be difficult to make everybody happy. But Royce made a really good point. Water. We're called Waterloo here, folks. We're sitting on one of North America's largest municipal aquifers, and it's beautiful water. It sustains life. The prior question was about climate change. And when we do things smartly, work with planners, we've got lots of them. They're smart ones in Wilmot, Woolwich, North Dumfries, the city. We've got smart people who tell us what to do. And sometimes when we apply an old-fashioned or government approach, we miss the bigger picture here. We need to preserve the good space we have. You need services closer to our homes, which includes access to water. And a road that's imperfect, there's going to have to be some compromise there. I don't want to weigh in too much more on this because those who are already involved, they know this. I feel like there's going to be some compromise that will need to be had, but preserving our green space and this water is something worth doing. And I hope that we listen to the experts on this one because there's going to be a solution. And I'm disappointed that it's come to this for a lot of us who love Vista Hills and who know this neighborhood here. And I'm not a big fan. Cutting through forest to put big transportation routes, but there is a solution here. It'll be coming soon.
So, yeah, I think Royce pretty much outlined what the issues are here. That line is owned by Wilmot Township. It is really unfortunate if real estate agents or developers pretended otherwise, that there would be a way to provide direct access through there. I mean, I firmly believe in the hard countryside line, which the region has kept for many, many years through its official planning process, in which the municipalities then adopt through our official planning process. I think that's really important, and obviously maintaining our water sources is also really critical. I think in terms of some of the challenges that are out here in terms of traffic and things like that, and again, Royce outlined some potential solutions. One of the other things that hasn't been mentioned yet this evening that certainly I would be very much in favor of fighting for, as with a regional hat on, is trying to provide some more public transportation out here, right? Because the service, as I understand it, is not great. It's infrequent and it needs to be increased. So I think potentially that would be a way to address some of those issues and potentially take the pressure off people who are trying to use that as another route to get out of Vista Hills. Vista Hills is a beautiful community. I don't know why you want to get out of it, but just but I think in all seriousness, really pushing for some more public transit out here would be something that would be a really high priority for me as well.
And the buses do end at the roundabout there, and I don't know how long we're walking this from the other end of the subdivision, but it's a significant walk.
Right.
40
yeah,
minutes, I'm
yeah.
told on repeatedly from.
40
folks out in
minutes.
that area.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah,
Anyway,
so
it is-
yeah, clearly that's a big issue and like I said, something that I would, I use public transit, you know, I get the service needs to be improved, but I'm firmly in the corner of working at the regional level to do that. And I think you deserve it out here.
Okay, Shannon.
Thanks. So I won't repeat. I mean, that was great information. Royce has experience in this, and I'm sure has been asked many times. The nuances of Wilmot line, and I am also so sorry if anyone here has experienced that misinformation. What I do think is this also speaks to, it's a reminder of how much we should be doing to really deeply engage and ensure that folks understand these issues, because as an example, in 2016, the region had a study looking at the balance of transportation needs and those environmentally sensitive lands and the realities even of Wilmot Line and its current design. And it was clear from that time that there wasn't going to be an immediate solution but there wasn't going to be a solution on the Wilmot Line. But I'm not sure that is terribly accessible or well known. I get the feeling that it's not. And so what I think now, what we could do to be better at ensuring, again, mayor sits on both city and regional council, that's understood and that throughout the neighborhood that we understand the purpose and the thought behind that Royce was so articulate in explaining. And I do agree that we need some other transportation options here. I also, find when I take the 31 bus down to St. Moritz, it's not the most ideal option, but it is an option when we need public transit. So it is important at the regional level. Are you okay? We've been talking a lot.
Yeah, exactly. I might just step aside.
Anyways, yeah, so I do think that there are opportunities to continue to think about how we move around Waterloo as a whole, so that we are really looking at this as a connected and complete community.
All right, great. That ends all our pre-done questions. So we're running a little bit behind time here, but we still certainly want to have a Q&A. So at this point, we'd open it up to anyone in attendance. If they'd like to ask a question to all the people up here, or just maybe a specific person. Or... Go ahead.
So I have a kid in Eastwood, which is fabulous school. That's nothing to do with Eastwood. We would love her to take the bus. It's fabulous for a kid who's in grade 9 to learn to take the bus, to develop a sense of confidence, independence. It is an hour and 20 minutes for her to take a bus with 2 connections. There is no way we can do that. Like, we just can't. We also can't bike that far. It's a little bit too far for her to get there on a bike in January. What are you guys going to do as a collective to fix our current bus system so that we can actually use it?
Sure, thank you. One of the things I know with traffic system monitoring, Curtis McBride's company in town here, they're experts, global experts at studying things exactly like this. So when the LRT bill got put in, finally, it's complete. It shifted the way transportation flows through our city. So when we look at folks who are an hour and a half, that's ridiculous. But when we assess how people are supposed to be traveling now these days, the LRT is supposed to run northish to southish. And then the bus system's supposed to be grid pattern east-west-ish. And we don't have enough data to keep everybody happy on this issue. So it's disappointing that an hour and a half, again, that's too long. There needs to be a study done.
It's a 20-minute drive,
Exactly.
but yet the bus is an hour and a half.
Yeah. So there's a way through this, but there's also innovative ways of approaching this too. So you don't need to study patterns of traffic necessarily to recognize that sharing economy models, carpooling, there's various ways. Mobility Plus is a new thing that we're going to be bringing a reassessment of the way we deliver services to folks just like you here. So if there is a way to do it, we need to look at different ways of doing it, because yeah, an hour and a half to go 20 minutes. There's a better way.
So I think it's great that you're looking at it, absolutely. And I've heard this area described as a transit desert, and that's really unfortunate. And as I said in my previous answer, absolutely improving the transit connections to this area would be really, would be definitely a priority. Certainly, I think transit frequency and service needs to increase across the region. But in terms of like some short-term solutions, some other countries that I've lived in, they've provided other options instead of just the big buses. So that's something that I've already talked to regional staff about it, and I would really be interested in exploring. Instead of the potentially having, the big city, or not city buses, the big regional buses come through. Some other places where I was living and traveling through, they had smaller vans, and they would do pickups. Kind of zip through a neighborhood and pick up people and then take them to almost like a shuttle service, and then take it to the main bus, to the main bus line. So I can't promise you this, but I know I've seen this happen. I've used those kind of services in other countries where I've lived, and I would, like I said, on my Climate Action Waterloo Region committee that I'm on, we've talked to the regional staff to say, aren't there some other solutions instead of just the big regional buses that sometimes lumber through our communities, right? Like, are there ways that we can find some other solutions that would be more nimble and get people to a point where they need to go, and then take that main bus or the LRT the rest of the direction? I mean, it's a challenge, there's no question. I think some of the service, it was redesigned when the LRT was put in. I think it's obviously a work in progress, and it's something that we need to continue to push staff on to say, an area like this needs some more service.
Just in the interest of time, maybe we won't do everybody answering unless you really want to. So I'll just leave it to you three if you want to chime in.
Be quick, because I think there's a key need for service, but I think there's also an opportunity, and some may be already following this issue with the municipal election, the school board conversations. I'm really excited that school boards are thinking about how might we make this work for a transit pass. I was involved actually in a number of post-secondary institutions in implementing universal transit passes. And yes, they were tricky, and there were referenda, and people were on either side of the issue, but I can say confidently today, vast majority of students, especially in this community, would really be remiss if they didn't have that universal transit pass. That's why ION and other buses are packed. And something that has allowed is service improvements. So I think there's another opportunity for our secondary students to become more accustomed and comfortable with using public transit through a model that has a much greater economic model. It's having students getting on the bus, on transit, and it will create the economics to have a much more rapid service improvements as well.
If I could add just very quickly, the folks to my right who are speaking so passionately about transit, it's great to hear. It is under the regional purview, so we have no direct authority over the budgets there. But and I would encourage everybody in this room and everybody watching on Zoom to please research who your other regional council candidates are, because they will be one of only 15 folks on regional council, and only one of 15 voices. And frankly, if we want to reduce the 50% of greenhouse gas emissions that come from transportation in our city, we need, in my perspective, transformative investment in public transit, transformative investment in pedestrian and cycling infrastructure. And I would really encourage you to advocate to the region on that, including the extension of the 31 bus studies that needs to come through the rest of the subdivision.
Yeah, just like maybe last comment, like I support all the ideas that Lisa have said, but also I think we need also at the community level, we need to encourage also carpooling. And this is another way that we lower the gas emissions. At the same time, we help each other, and it can be like a good things that can bring the community together also. And also the idea of the microbuses or minivans that run like between two points maybe. And maybe another idea, we can increase the frequent schedule, like during some peak times. So you don't need to wait for another stop, another bus, for example. I remember when my son was going to his jam, he has to wait another bus to get on from Zermatt, which is very short time, so it takes him almost half an hour. Because the first bus takes 15 minutes to get there, but it's packed, so it has to wait in during the winter especially. So if we have more frequent buses during the peak hours, that makes maybe the problem a little bit easier.
We got another question back here, I believe? No? Okay, oh, yeah.
Hi, so my question is, do you have a plan for protection of ethnic minorities against hate and discrimination? And if so, what is it?
You all want to start? I'd be happy to start on that one. So this is something that is, I don't know if there's anything that would be more important. As a community, we need to be welcoming to all types of residents. The city, and I'm mayor, will have a diversity, equity, and inclusion policy. We're going to make sure that we follow it, because we've heard well-meaning leaders in the past approach situations that are to get on board, but what does it mean? What are your values? What are we as a community bringing to people? 1 in 4 people in Waterloo were born outside of Canada. And it's brought the diversity that I love in my community. Our culture is more vibrant, our music's different and better, our food is more diverse, just like our people are. So I love the fact that Waterloo looks a little bit more like the world. And as mayor, we're going to make sure that our diversity, inclusion, and equity policy is in place. And the A plan that we're rolling out, it's a Canadian innovation. It's called equity and in housing, because it touches on where all of us sleep at night or want to. So with equity, diversity, inclusion, and setting the tone for City Hall, for our council, and for our community, that's something we're going to bring. Mayor, thank you.
Yeah, so just want to start with an old saying in Arabic cultures is that human is an enemy what he doesn't know. So, and hate, I think, comes from somebody you feel that you're not coming along with him. I'm not calling him enemy, but I think inclusion is one of the tools or measures we can use to bring community together as multiculturalism community. And maybe, schools is the best place, I think, to encourage this inclusion by running even after school programs. So people, they come together and maybe we do some food festivals, we do some cultural events based on people that get to know each other, and they will admire and accept each other, and they see the benefit of coming together. And by this way, they learn about different culture, visit that background, and then they love each other more. So I think that would be what we can try.
Yeah, so equity, inclusion, belonging, these are pillars of my campaign as well too. I'm a bit, you'll apologize, I'll geek out for a second. I'm a bit of a census nerd, so I like looking at the census for my neighborhoods, and I Ward 2 happens to be 3 of the 5 most diverse neighborhoods in the entire region. And I think that diversity is what makes Ward 2 so unique and so special and so great, frankly. It promotes inclusivity and friendliness and neighborliness amongst the various neighborhoods. For me personally, I have committed to, and folks will have seen it if you follow me on social media, calling out racist, homophobic, and xenophobic behavior at every turn that it's happened in Ward 2, and it is unfortunate that it does occasionally occur in our community. And I am committed to working with the local faith-based organizations in our community, the neighborhood associations who put on such great inclusive events for our community, and the city's new anti-racism, indigenous reconciliation, and accessibility team to work towards a more inclusive and welcoming city of Waterloo. It is a concerted effort that it requires for everybody at the city and all departments to work together to build these spaces and events that are enjoyed by everyone.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that the city, Royce Council staff have been doing a lot of work to create a safe space and the resources for that reconciliation, anti-racism, and accessibility team. So that EDI work is already happening. We're seeing it actually at both the city and the regional level. And then I think we also, so we are looking at systemic barriers, we're looking at education, we're looking at more engagement across the many diverse communities in our beautiful city. But we also have to think about some, tools that can mitigate any kind of hate crime, any way that people are being harmed in this community. And that is important to speak out about it. And it's also important to hear about where we may have people's safety threatened harm being done. So hopefully that we can avoid those issues. And part of it is about creating a sense of belonging in community so that as neighbors, we can get to know each other and understand each other and realize that we're all human beings and that we are all deserving of love and respect. And that's an important part of the neighborhood building work that your neighborhood association does. And I want to see more support to enable that across our communities.
So yeah, really briefly, I agree with what others up here have said. And I mean, it's an issue. We have to confront it and we have to call it out where we see it. And I really did applaud the current council for repurposing one of their director level positions into the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I think that was a good start. And there's work that is being done at the region as well with anti-racism. And I think that work is also critically important. But I think it's really important also to be active and to speak out every time you see it. And just a quick story of, I was so frustrated when those Freedom Convoy people were constantly taking over Waterloo Town Square. So back at the end of February, just kind of overnight, myself and a friend put a call out and said, because I saw those partly as white supremacy, not just about anti-vaxxers and stuff like that. And I was just sick and tired of seeing them take over our square. So overnight, we organized at the end of February, and it was very cold that day, a protest there. And we got there first to take up our space and just to say to these people, no, this is not acceptable in our community. We do not agree with you. We do not want this here, and you're not welcome. So it was a really empowering experience for me. I'm just sorry that people continue to experience this in our community, and I'll do what I can as mayor and as regional council to continue to push back against that.
Vista Hills is very diverse. It's one of the reasons a lot of people love living here.
Yeah.
Question?
So my name is Zafar Khan. So you don't need to really answer whatever you want to say, just food for thoughts. Basically, I think Waterloo is an international famed city, but unfortunately, none of the road is representing or showing, giving any international look to the city. So my suggestion is, like maybe one of the road, like University Avenue or Columbia Street or Weber Street, maybe can redevelop into a way that should be pedestrian friendly, service road, proper landscaping, so that it can improve the look of the city. So that's number one. And number two, like most of the street where there are bus stop just on the road. Bus stop, all the car behind bus, they stop. So after bus move, then the car move. So it is not good for the driver, cause a lot of frustration, and it's also not good for the environment because car idling and like making a lot of pollution. Number three, I am very concerned about the Sunview Street. So the design of Sunview Street is just a very tiny roundabout. They call, I don't know what the purpose they are serving. I always spoke to him, and there are very big sharp turn on the corner, and that is causing a lot of accidents in the winter. So, and more houses there under construction, more traffic going to be coming on the Sunview Street, and I don't know what you guys can come up with any solution on the Sunview design of the Sunview Street. So I already spoke to Sharon yesterday. We have a very detailed discussion. So Arundel and the Up Street also there's another problem. There's always traffic like clogging and like bottleneck, and it's going to be causing more problem where you see more development is going on. So I hope there will be some proper solution coming up for that area too. Thank you.
Can I ask a clarification question? I'm just wondering, you were suggesting a pedestrianized street? I just wasn't clear.
So
where-
basically, you know, like the Waterloo city, whole city,
Yeah,
I really don't see any proper road where there is proper service road, proper landscaping and the proper pedestrian walking area.
so you
just
were
like
suggesting
Avenue.
that for more uptown? I wasn't
Yeah,
sure if you meant
so
something.
anywhere, anywhere. So
okay,
you-
okay.
Like University Avenue, Columbia Street, Weaver Street, I really don't see any good looking road which can represent Waterloo as an international city, you know.
Okay, thanks for that, yeah.
There's the good news on that part, which will require support of my colleagues on regional council because it is a regional road. But University Avenue has a actually really exciting and wonderful project that reimagines University Avenue as the gateway to the city, coming right off the expressway through the 3 post-secondary institutions along University. It looks at how we animate the street better in terms of pedestrianization and in terms of public art, and particularly with what's going on at the exciting sort of renovations of the music school at Wilfrid Laurier University. There's a lot of really exciting stuff that's going to happen there. Now, that's going to cost a lot of money, and my regional council colleagues are going to have to look at how that gets dealt with as the road has necessary infrastructure improvements that are needed for it. But yes, I totally agree. And I think university, the work that regional council has done on the University Avenue Gateway project in conjunction with the city envisions very much what you're talking about.
And I'll just add, because I was on the steering committee for that gateway strategies, or this, and so it should be a priority to me as well. That they also were looking at some of the safety issues. King and University, the accidents and that intersection are just enormous, and there is absolutely better ways that we can design that intersection, both for the aesthetics, taking active transportation, more of a pedestrian area, but also for safety, because that intersection is really bad for accidents, and we need to change the design of that.
And can I just quickly add to, I went to Laurier, so I know that intersection, I don't want to tell you how long ago I went to Laurier, but it's been bad for a long, long time. And we do need to improve the gateway into our city. So I think we can get the federal government to pay for that. Don't you think, Maurice? I think we can get the federal government money to pay for it.
It's all up your alley. You go for it, whatever.
But I
works.
just wanted to say, I think there's really cool opportunities for pedestrian, making streets more pedestrian friendly, particularly when there's events like Lumen. I was up in Uptown Waterloo last Saturday night. It was packed with people, and I really think the city missed an opportunity. We should have, for safety reasons, but just to take over the streets, they should have opened those streets to pedestrians.
Absolutely.
Because there were so many vehicles trying to get through when people were like, this should have been our space. So I think there's opportunities that we can look at more carefully to say, this really adds to the vibrancy of the street when you open it up to pedestrians. So 100% agree with you on that. I think there's some interesting.
Especially
opportunities there.
nighttime, the University Avenue is very dangerous because a lot of students, they're walking all over.
Yep.
And it's not too much light there,
Yeah.
and very poor lit. So very difficult to see people going this way, that, you
Yeah.
have to drive really carefully, otherwise there's always possibility of some kind of mishap.
Well, there's lots of examples around the world. Like, Holland has amazing street designs, right? That manages people,
Yes.
vehicles and scooters and bikes very, very nicely.
Yeah.
That we can adopt those we don't have to reinvent the wheel here. We know there's answers out there.
See, there's new concept. I know this is too much to say, but there's new concept, 15-20 minute cities.
Yeah, yeah.
Like everything is accessible in 15-20 minutes. You don't need to take the car out,
Yeah.
Just get rid of your car, you can get everywhere in 15-20 minutes, by walking.
And that concept is in our new regional official plan, and
Yeah.
you can expect that and also reflected in the city official plan. I think that's great.
Sure, you want 30 seconds there?
Yeah.
Well, yes, I'd like to challenge our friends here to remember that some of us have kids at home. And I know we've got a lot to share. And you brought up something that's fantastic. It's tied to the growth management challenge. We've got cities that were designed a long time ago, and the growth has changed. So we're talking about flow of access to people going from A to B. Streetscaping is part of our plan. So I will encourage you all, go to check out robevansmayor.ca. There's very specific and simple ways to see how the streetscaping will improve to make more pedestrian friendly spaces for humans, because that's what's being done in other great communities. And this is one opportunity to create a more holistic view of how people want to engage with their city and engage with their friends and neighbors.
All right, I'll give you 30 seconds there too.
Yeah, just quickly. So yeah, thank you for bringing like those issues. So just want to comment on the Sunview Street or road, whatever called. I think those things roundabouts were meant to be like work as a speed bump. But I think, in my opinion, as an architect and studied urban planning, they pose more safety risk than speed bump, especially during the winter time. So I think that should be looked at again. How maybe I think there's some room to widen it a little bit, maybe. But also that curve at the end, I think it's very sharp end. Based on myself, when I start my kids to play basketball here, it's very hard to take that turn. And sometimes there's some cars coming from the other side, so it's gonna be more. For streetscaping, I guess one of the things that I was thinking of putting more trees, more plants even on the side streets. For example, my street, Montpelier, there are many missing trees there. So even during the summertime, we don't have enough shade to walk. So this is not encouraging you to walk. And sometimes I saw some areas where some people put some benches on their front yard. That's also another good idea to make like streetscaping more nicely and put some flower plants beside it. So it makes me more welcoming. So even like old people or seniors when they walk, they can walk for a long time. So they can have a place where they can sit. And some people was telling me we need some water fountains along the trail. That's something also could be part of the parking the plans or master plan, whatever. So there's some good ideas we can bring along and make it.
So even small, like, how difficult is to make a bus bay to stand just on the side of it instead of on the middle of the road? How difficult is that?
Like a bus only
You
lane.
need to make,
Bus
the bus
only
stop on the
lanes are
side.
way- I think he said
So
way
even
high.
on this Columbia Street in our Vista Hill, bus is stopping, we're all stopping behind the bus. We're waiting people to go into bus and bus to move and move behind the bus. So this is the new area. How difficult is to make a bus bay, where bus can stop and when people are there, then they can move,
I think
So
there's a
this
couple,
is-
since it's getting late here, and I think we're gonna wrap up soon, and I believe our rental's almost over too here, so we do have a hard end.
That's right.
Yeah, Brett was here, so.
Yeah. So a couple takeaways there is, yes, of course, that corner is very steep. I think we've all seen cars going through it in the winter and sat on the bottom of the hill. And I think the city's replaced that sign on the median probably 10 times. And to the bus point, theoretically engineered, there's enough room to go by the bus there, but if that bus isn't parked really close to that curb, you can't get through, right? So those are a couple of issues.
Okay.
So we'd like to move on just to final closing statements. Given time, if you can just do maybe 1 or 2 minutes here, just to kind of summarize why we think you should be the next mayor or next councillor of Ward 2. And then we'll have a few closing notes and we'll finish our evening. So Khalid, you were next in line, actually.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, so I'm proud that we're living here in Waterloo since 2006, almost 17 years now. And I really want to share my expertise, my ideas, my credentials also to put in the service of the community and the city at large. I thank Royce for running again. I wish him all the best. But at the end of the day, it's number counts, right? So please visit my website. You find more information, calendarbus.com, and my postcard are there on the table, so please pick one on your way out. And you find more information about myself, what I'm doing, what I can bring to the community. But at the end of the day, I'm here. I love to work with everybody or with the winner. I'm open to work with everybody to make it happen, make Waterloo a better place.
Thank you. This is a wonderful opportunity to be reminded that it's not just about being mayor. It's not just about me. We work as a council, we work as a team, as a business leader and community builder. Who's worked with every level of government, federal, provincial, local, and global. My business, my interests brought that global to local perspective. And that helps me understand in addition to listening to my community, what it is that we need. And so the growth that we've had recently requires some innovation. That's what we're going to bring to City Hall. Thank you.
Super quickly, thank you very much to Jake and Sean and Brad for hosting this and for everyone for coming and whoever's listening, and to the principal. I'm not sure if she's in here, but thank you for doing this. It's a really important part of the process and of democracy, obviously. As I said earlier and throughout this, I have years of experience already working. I currently work in municipal government. I used to work in the provincial government. Government relations is my role, and public service has been my passion for over 20 years. It's the sector that I chose to build my career in. So I have the experience. I'm able to start to lead this city from day one. There are some really big changes coming from the provincial government that are going to be impacting municipalities. We don't know yet what those changes are going to be, but I do know that it's going to take someone with some experience, who knows the system, who knows how municipalities work, who knows how the relationship they have with the provincial government and the federal government to navigate the tricky waters that are coming. So I'm the candidate, as I said before, with the most experience. Would love your support, and I thank you again for coming tonight and getting involved. It's really important. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Dorothy. I think that subject we could spend a whole debate on. You're bringing up about provincial downloading.
Yeah. Wow.
Shannon, you can.
Absolutely, yes. And thank you also to everyone here and those that are watching online as well, for engaging tonight in so many important conversations. Really, I think about this and I think about what is driving me, and this is really about creating a more livable city for everyone. It underpins the questions around belonging and inclusion. It underpins the questions around connectedness, active transportation. It really underpins so much. It's about livability for everyone so that we all feel a sense of belonging and engagement in our community. And my experience leading community projects, we talked about a few of them tonight, and bringing people together to advance the needs for Waterloo is the kind of collaborative style that you can expect from me to get things done. That's based on that experience, both in municipal sector, in working collaboratively across the city and the regions, working on projects like the University Avenue Gateway and the neighborhood strategy, just having that knowledge about how to connect people and engage deeply across the community to really make that make the vision meaningful and make sure that it's reflective of the community. And I just want to also mention that there's more about my priorities on my website, shannonweber.ca. I think we all probably have materials at the back, so check that out. There are some other debates where we had some different questions that are published online, like Rogers TV debates, if we didn't bore you too much tonight. So thank you again so much for your valuable time and insight. And I'm just so excited to keep these conversations going and build that livable community for everybody.
I drank far too much water and have to go to the washroom again, so I'm gonna be super duper fast. I just want to thank the Vista Hills Community Association for their continued passion and engagement with the community, and for everyone here and watching online for joining us today, and give us the opportunity to share information with residents. It's really great. And if you share my vision for an equitable and inclusive city, if you would like to see the city continue to tackle priorities that matter to you, things like climate action and affordable housing and safe streets, I would ask you to go check out my website at www.roycebodily.ca to see some more of my priorities. If you'd like to show support for my campaign, you can request a sign on that website as well too. And there's also an opportunity for you to book a neighborhood meeting in your backyard if you'd like to chat further. And I'm still passionate and still eager to continue to tackle these issues for the neighborhood. And I'm asking for you to continue to support me on October 24th. Thank you.
Great. With that, I'd like to thank the candidates for all coming tonight. Appreciate your time and your 3 hours almost here tonight. Also, thank you to residents both online and that came here. It's really important to have these things so Vista Hills issues is heard. So whoever gets elected can take those, and do stuff in Vista Hills, right? And the old saying is, if you don't vote, you can't complain. So You know, get out there and vote. Last 4 years ago, 33% of wards voted, which was better than the city average, but not very good. So please get out there and vote. Ask your friends, neighbors to go out and vote. You know, it doesn't matter who you vote for, you know, do your democratic duty. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate it, and have a safe drive home or walk.